You know me and discounts. I've become quite mean about discounts, actually. The Times, how safe are you? The expert's guide to post-lockdown life. And tough new isolation rule to stop the virus surge. Because, you know, the more people who come back with the virus or contract it and don't self-isolate, the longer this is going to go on, and the more people are going to die. And that's the hard and fast. There's no easy way to tell you. No easy way to tell you. Political parties should adopt anti-money laundering rules. It's amazing how many people donate. The most unlikely people donate, and you begin to wonder what they get in return for it. Steve, I've been listening to you for 6+ years, and now you're on my subject. I make 4 tons of ice a week and supply clubs and pubs and house parties and make ice carvings throughout Europe. You get the most amazing people who listen to this program. Seriously, the man who's been listening for 6 years, and now after 6 years we talk about ice because he makes 4 tons of it a week. Amazing, isn't it? I'm in awe of you. In awe of you. What a lovely job to have. A bit cold for me, but I'm sure it'll be quite nice actually. And does house parties and everything else. And then Paul says, how do you get one of your tote bags? You don't. They're sold out. We sold 6,680. Emma Barton's going on the car ferry. Aren't you posh? Aren't you posh? I've never been on the car ferry. We did the walking bit when we went over. When we were little, I haven't been for years and years. I'd quite like to go again, actually. You never know. I might do it one day. The Eye this morning, UK travel chiefs demand help to save the industry. And how much truth is there in a royal biography? Here's the question of the day. How much truth? No, my question is, who makes all the money? That's what I want to know. It's a straightforward question. It's not complicated, is it? Grant Shapps back from Spain, so he'll be doing the looking after staying in. Also, BBC failing to create water cooler moments. So there you go. The secret of Stonehenge's biggest stones. They say that they were dragged 140 miles from the Preseli Mountains in Wales, but now they've established they came 15 miles away. So they weren't dragged all these miles. So that was a bit of fibby poos, wasn't it? And what was the other one? One of Britain's reigning world champions in wheelchair basketball said he may have to have his left leg amputated to compete in the Paralympics after receiving the news that his disability no longer meets impairment. Oh, Struth. No end to it. Thank you for your company. On my free Little Bit Extra podcast, please download it. Princess Anne's husband has surprised the royal households full of laughter. Not too surprising, probably all laughing at Harry and Meghan. Joey Essex throws a party to celebrate his 30th birthday. Naturally, hardly anybody turns up, and I reveal I go back a very long way with Catherine Zeta-Jones. Download, please, from the LBC app, Global Player, or wherever else you get your podcasts. As well as listening live to LBC, you can listen back to this and other LBC programmes on the LBC app, as well as listening to a range of podcasts. It's lbc.co.uk. I'm Steve Allen, back with you tomorrow morning at 4 for another thrilling episode of Steve Allen's Early Breakfast. Coming up at 10, it's James O'Brien, but next, and I'm reliably informed he cycled into work, it's Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Okay, thank you, Steve. At 7 o'clock on Thursday, July the 30th, has the penny dropped for Barclays boss about the need to get back to work?
In terms of people working from home, we expect and want to get in a prudent time schedule to get people back together in physical concentration.
In the dig concerning the disappearance of Madeleine McCanna's cellar is found.
Piles of earth that have been removed from that hole are being sifted. No word from the prosecutor whether they found what they're looking for.
What's in a name? A lot for Meghan Markle as she tries to block identities of her pals.
As the Duchess of Sussex prepares to go to court against the publishers of the Mail on Sunday, Meghan now finds herself battling to protect the identity of 5 of her friends.
And the doctor won't see you now as cyber visits and telephone consultations appear here to stay. Health Secretary in this hour.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock, it's understood the self-isolation period for people in England with coronavirus symptoms will be increased from 7 to 10 days. The Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Professor Jonathan Van Tam, is expected to confirm the change later amid fears of a second spike in cases. At the same time, ministers are said to be considering reducing the quarantine time for those returning from high-risk countries. Yesterday, Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, admitted she's cautious about changing the rules in her nation.
We have to be very rigorous in our assessment of whether testing at particular times when somebody comes into or back to the country, whether that would be as effective as a period of 14-day quarantine.
A new study suggesting 7% of people in Britain have previously been infected with coronavirus, but the researchers who looked at antibodies found rates varied significantly across different sectors of society. It was higher for the under 30s and people from black and minority ethnic groups. The head of the Crown Prosecution Service wants more rape victims to be able to pre-record evidence to avoid coming to court for trial. Max Hill wants to increase the number of recorded rape cases which end with a prosecution. In the last year, it was just 1.4%. Some victims could also be offered a digital walkthrough of the court process so that they know what to expect. Alex Feist-Bryce is a rape survivor who now helps others. He doubts the measures will do much.
The scale of the solutions proposed doesn't come close to meeting the scale of the problem. And, you know, the problem ultimately in the criminal justice system is that we have such low conviction rates and such low prosecution rates that rape is effectively decriminalised in the UK.
Detectives digging up a garden plot in Germany in connection with the disappearance of Madeleine McCann have reportedly found the remains of a hidden cellar. The site in Hanover is close to where a German prisoner, who was identified last month as the main suspect, used to live. Only 1 in every 7 GP appointments in the UK is now being held face-to-face. The Royal College of GPs found 61% of consultations are taking place over the phone, up from around a quarter before the coronavirus pandemic. View cinemas are to start reopening at the end of next week. Film times will be staggered and some seats in the cinemas will be blocked out to ensure people can observe social distancing. In the city, the FTSE 100 will reopen at 61.31 after closing up 2 points yesterday, and the pound buys $1.29 and €1.10. And the weather turning much warmer and sunnier for much of England and Wales after a cloudy start in places. Some rain for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and generally cooler in the north. A high of 28 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Simon Conway.
At Honda, we listened to the world, and it didn't just tell us to create an electric car, it told us how. What's that, London? You need a car that makes it easy to make sharp lane changes. Okay, and what about you, Paris? A car that parks itself? Oh la la. Something small but quick off the mark. Good point, Frankfurt, and uber-tight turning circle for quick U-turns. Right, let's see what we can do. The new Honda E. Honda, the power of dreams.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
3 minutes after 7 on Thursday, July the 30th. The penny seems to have dropped from Barclays as their boss says it's time to get people back to work. We'll look at that story in more detail. Police in Germany find a secret cellar in connection with the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Full details on that story. To court, where Meghan Markle says there's a lot in her name. It's not what's in her name. She's desperate to keep identities over in secret. Why? We'll give you full details on that. It's 10 years since the introduction of Sir Boris Bikes here in London. Of course, a celebration. Not if you're on one of the busiest roads in the city, Euston Road, where, as part of a £24 million development, it's reduced to 1 lane. If you know London, you'll know the impact of that. It has 2 of the busiest railway stations on it, Paddington to Euston. So a challenge today, 3 reporters travelling that distance in different ways.
On the 10th anniversary of the Boris Bike, I'm LBC's Matthew Thompson, carrying the weight of the Johnson legacy on my shoulders as I race the Boris Bike.
And on LBC's The Emotion, in my car, I'm on a single lane of traffic all the way down the Euston Road. And I'm limbered up, stretches are done, marmalade is good to go, ready to run down Euston Road. I'm LBC's James Goodison.
Yeah, marmalade, Paddington, think about it. Plus, in other news, after the Washington Redskins, the United States, the American football team says it will change its telephones, and Boo Avenue, which I must admit I don't go to so regularly, the laundry retailer. He joins me now. Theo, what's your sense of the high street? How desperate is it to get back to work, and how are you handling your staff? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Obviously, it would be fantastic if we could all get back to work and get back to what was normal. But I'm going to tell you something now that no politician is prepared to tell you. It's never going to happen.
the Institute for Public Policy Research, I think, to take your views on that. Also, you know, it's 10 years ago today that as then Mayor Boris Johnson introduced the London Cycle Hire Scheme, otherwise known as Boris Bikes, and he was speaking with me on the day.
I think cycling is the best possible way of getting around, so the way I do it every day. Schemes like this have been phenomenally successful in other cities.
He's still banging on about cycling 10 years later. At 7:15 LBC News headlines, Simon Conway.
The self-isolation period for those with coronavirus symptoms in England will reportedly be extended to 10 days, up from the current 7. Detectives investigating the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, who have been digging up a garden plot in Germany, have reportedly found the remains of a hidden cellar. And the number of cars built in the UK over the past 6 months has fallen to the lowest since 1954. The weather becoming very warm and sunny for much of England and Wales, some rain elsewhere, a high of 28 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. 2 lanes are closed on the Surrey stretch of the M25 clockwise between junctions 10 at the A3 and 11 at Chatsey, and that's because of an accident. A car's broken down on the M23 northbound between junctions 9 at Gatwick Airport and junction 8 at the M25, but that's because a car has broken down. In Surrey, very busy on the A243 Leatherhead Road both ways at Mullion Rushett. That's because of the ongoing roadworks. And also the A2 in London is very slow westbound from the Falconwood interchange up to the Kidbrooke interchange, and that's all down to the closure of the South Circular Road, which is closed westbound at the A2.
This is LBC.
Please wear a face covering when shopping at Sainsbury's. Thank you for helping us keep our customers and colleagues safe. Sainsbury's.
Call Nick Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973. This is LBC.
As London begins to reopen, we're making the public transport network cleaner than ever before. For everyone's safety, we clean our services regularly with hospital-grade antiviral disinfectant that kills viruses and bacteria on contact and protects for up to 30 days. We clean touch points, including handrails, busy interchanges every few hours. We've also introduced 1,000 hand sanitizer stations across the public transport network. Search TfL Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
More music next. If you're an Uber driver, you could be entitled to benefits that you aren't getting. Join the Uber driver's legal claim and you could get £9,000 on average if the claim is successful. But you've got to be in it to win it. Get what you're rightfully owed, because you deserve better. Experienced employment lawyers Lee Day believe Uber drivers deserve better. Sign up now. Text partners to 82727 or visit driversclaim.co.uk to find out more.
Peoples of the UK, if you can't come to pizza, pizza must come to you. Sergey, what do we got today? Margaritas. Sergey, we have drinks later. I mean, what kind of pizza? Meerkat Meals now give you 50% off pizzas at Papa John's and Pizza Hut delivery. All week, delivery or collection. Only with the Meerkat app from Compare the Market.
Qualifying purchase, geographical restrictions apply. 50% off pizza with participating outlets 7 days a week. £30 minimum spend pre-discount. Order via the app with your membership. T's and C's apply.
How do we control coronavirus now? Listen to Steph. She's a bus driver.
Now that people are using public transport again, we really need to make sure that we keep each other safe. Passengers need to stay 2 metres apart. If that's not possible, make it at least 1 metre. I want to see everyone wearing face coverings over their mouth and nose, unless you've got a good reason not to. And when you get to where you're going, you need to wash your hands. We've still got to play our part.
Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Network Rail is upgrading the signalling through Hither Green between Saturday the 25th of July and Sunday the 2nd of August. Buses will replace trains for essential travel between Lewisham, Sidcup and Orpington. You may face longer journeys and queues for buses at busier times. So, if you're going to help your mum or celebrate a birthday from 3 months ago, please travel another way if possible. Plan ahead at networkrail.co.uk/Hither Green. The Southeast upgrade. A better railway is in the works.
Nick Ferrari and Breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
20 minutes after 7 is the time. Quickly, the front pages so that you're informed as you go about your day, or of course possibly as you finish your day, you go and get some sleep. This is what is framing the news agenda. 2 main themes really: health and Madeleine McCann. The Daily Telegraph, isolation for COVID to increase to 3 days. We have the Health Secretary on later. I think I might have said in this hour, so I do apologise. Actually, in the next hour we'll put that to him. A tough new isolation or to stop virus surges. The front page of the Times again. We'll put that to the Health Secretary in the next hour. UK travel industry demand help is the front page of the Eye. The front page of the Daily Express. Boris vows to fight second wave on all fronts. What on earth does that mean? I mean, I know what the words mean, but what does that mean? Did he actually use those words? He probably needs a bit of a rest if he did, or is it the headline writer? Has he actually said this? Prime Minister, oh, it is said to be desperate. Okay, so he's not used these words, which are absolutely absurd. Fighting it on all fronts. Dear God. 1 in 10 GPs now, 1 in 10 of us see our GPs face to face. The so-called cyber visit revolution is set to continue. We're looking at that in detail. When was the last time you physically saw your doctor? Actually got in front of him or her? When was the last time that happened to you? Fortunately, I haven't had to see anybody, but I can't even, I'm delighted, fortunately, I can't even remember. The Guardian has a shock edition about the voices of what they call as BLM, Britain, Black Lives Matter Britain. For the remaining 4 papers, then, it's all Madeleine McCann. For the Metro, Maddie cops find a cellar. The Daily Mirror, Maddie suspects secret cellar. It's virtually all the same here, isn't it? The Sun, Maddie, secret cellar found, and also the Daily Star, Maddie cops find secret cellar. We'll give you more details on that later in this hour, actually, before 21:07. Now, Tony's at Woodford. Tony, how important is it for industries and for businesses around these major industries that we do get some people back to work? Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Nick. Yeah, it's important, but I'm just thinking with the furlough scheme, you were just mentioning about all the jobs that are no longer there. You've got a lot of these people, ones who earned above the £1,200,000 threshold for paying tax, so the government's got another headache. All these people have been able to claim tax rebates if they can't find work before next April. And now the 10 days isolation period, well, that's just going to help. That's not going to help matters either, is it? 10 days possible isolation for anyone who's got symptoms.
No, I totally agree. This Saturday, it's the end of the advice, work from home if you can work from home. What do you think the government needs to do as of Saturday?
Well, as Theo, so I think it's Theo?
Yeah, for Fetus, yes.
The difficulty is that the social distancing. The social distancing is a major problem in this country now. It's a major problem. We've had what we can do and what we can't do.
But do you think, like Theo, let me ask you this lastly, Tony, do you agree then with Theo Fetus that in reality, until a vaccine is found, we're just tinkering around the edges here? Do you agree with him on that?
I do agree with him. There's also cures. We've got one at the moment and possibly another one coming up, and that will certainly help, and maybe before even the vaccine.
Let's hope that those words prove prosaic. Thank you, Tony. We'll have more on this in a moment. There are other stories around, and today is an anniversary, particularly if you're in or around London or you commute to and from the city, because it's 10 years to the day since the launch of the so-called Boris bike. They were named, of course, after the man who's now the Prime Minister. He was then London Mayor Boris Johnson, introducing them obviously back in 2010. LBC's political editor Theo Ushwood has donned his cycle shorts and cycle clips and takes a pedal back to look at the success and perhaps a few occasions when those bicycles nearly came off the road.
Just hours from the launch of perhaps the Mayor's lasting legacy for the whole of London, you join me live outside the LBC studios in the middle of Leicester Square, and I am now aboard one of these great bicycles just a day before the cycle hire scheme launches. Mayor Johnson, what are your hopes?
What an impressive figure you are there, Nick, on this. You know, Rick, it is the Rolls Royce of bicycles.
Well, I'm looking forward. We're going to have
10 years ago to the day, the man who was Mayor of London launched the famous Boris bike. The idea was simple. 5,000 bicycles available to every Londoner for just £2. It wasn't long before Boris Johnson, for the first time, was accused of over-egging the numbers.
What plans are there to generate the remaining 820,000 cycle journeys a day needed for cycling to make up